Hello and welcome to Fire Headlines, where we discuss the hottest topics in fire service news. I'm your host, Samantha Didion. This week, the team at the Western Fire Chiefs Association was gathered in Dallas, Texas, for the International Association of Fire Chiefs FRI conference. While at the conference, I had the chance to sit down with WFCA's Idaho rep, Chief Charlie Butterfield. Chief Butterfield is also the Deputy Fire Chief at the Meridian Fire Department. Here's our conversation on networking and higher education in the fire service. Chief Butterfield, Welcome to Fire Headlines. Can we start off by telling our listeners a little bit about your background?
Sure, yeah. I've actually came up in the fire service in the state of Idaho. 28 years in the fire service, started in 1996 in Sun Valley area. Many people are familiar with that ski resort community in Sun Valley. And moved up through the ranks, started out as a firefighter, and I've been a chief officer for the last 10 years. Currently serve in Meridian, Idaho as a deputy chief of administration. And I've been in that role for 2 years. Prior to that, I was the operations chief for 5 years at the department, second largest city in the state of Idaho.
Oh, wow, very impressive. So our theme for this episode is higher education and networking.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little overview of how important you find this specifically in your department and then overall in the fire service?
Yeah, I think it is an important area, especially for firefighters that do want to grow in their career path to pursue higher education. And at a firefighter level, it's a lot of skills-based training, and so a lot of very fundamental skills. But as you move up through your career, you become a little more tactical-minded at a company officer. And then when you get up to a chief officer, you move really even from a tactical level of decision-making to more of a strategic level of decision-making. And at that strategic level, the skill set that you're going to need to be successful isn't necessarily the skill set you would need to have as a firefighter or even a company officer. So you have to develop those skills one way or another. And generally speaking, the skills that you're going to need for managing a multi-million-dollar budget, for managing progressive department and all the personnel that come with that and all of the other challenges, you tend to need higher education. So you would find that most job applications at a higher level are going to require some sort of a college degree of some sort.
And so what kind of programs or avenues do you find that the firefighters take when pursuing their higher education?
Programs, there's a lot of fire administrative programs out there. A lot of different colleges offer and universities offer that. And I think that it's kind of a well-rounded, if you look in fire administration, because it's going to touch a lot of what you're going to need when it relates to personnel matters, when it relates to administrative matters, financial matters, and then a lot legal matters. All of those are complexities that I've certainly seen in my career as a fire administrator. And so there's a lot of programs around that I think really benefit somebody who aspires to be in that role.
Are there any specific universities that stand out to you that are like maybe leaders when it comes to like fire science, for example?
Well, one that I'm pretty familiar with because I actually teach is at Idaho State University because it's nearby where I am. I've been an instructor, professor in that program for many years now. And so they have a program that's very accessible. It's all online, which helps, especially with career firefighters. They don't need to attend in-person classes. And so you can complete an associate's or a bachelor's degree online. And many of my students that I teach are career firefighters. And so they will log in some of our classes while they're at the fire station. And then, of course, there's understanding from a teacher's role that sometimes they get a call and they get a leave, and so we create opportunities for them to still complete the coursework and get that done. And there's many other throughout the entire country. There's a lot of other universities that have understood the importance of firefighters needing to rise up and achieve these types of higher education degrees and pursuits of higher education, but also recognizing that often they work in an environment of shift work, which they have to become pretty flexible on that. They can't necessarily attend classes in person throughout the week.
Right. Can you give our listeners a little bit of an example of how maybe you pursue some of the individuals at your department to pursue higher education?
That's a really good question. I think those who want to pursue it will certainly have those conversations, and those who aspire. And I think that's part of my role as a chief officer, is looking for those up and comers, looking for the people that I can tell are going to have what it takes to be successful as a chief officer, or successful moving up in those types of a career path. And then it's in many ways incumbent on me to reach out and have those conversations with the up-and-comers, and not necessarily wait for them to come to my office and knock on the door, but for me to go out and engage them in their fire station and encourage them to move forward and do these pursuits. And I found that to be pretty beneficial, and I think we all can agree that when somebody comes to you, especially somebody maybe a supervisor or somebody higher up in the organization, and they really encourage you, I mean, it just, you can see people who never really maybe have experienced somebody encouraging them, and then they move a little bit further, and I think it's really enjoyable. It's kind of the mentorship part, and just provide people sometimes it's just a little information, a little nudge, and support that you can help them out. I've seen it really be successful.
Right, and you just mentioned mentorship, and that kind of switches gears to the networking, because I believe those kind of go hand in hand, right?
100%.
So the first question I have as it regards to networking is, how can someone new to the field find mentors or advisors in the fire service? Like, say they're fresh out of high school and they decide they want a career in the fire service.
The number one thing, get involved. Get involved in whatever you can find. There are committees to get involved in. There's fire stations are full of people who want to help others. That's what we do for a living. Day in, day out, we help others. And so there are people, if you're willing to ask, and sometimes that you might have to be a little vulnerable in that, to go out and say you need help or you need some some assistance, but the people are there willing to give it. But sometimes you just got to kind of get over yourself, that you accept the fact that you don't know what you don't know, and there's other people that are there and they're going to help you.
Yeah, I like that. Except you don't know what you don't know. That is a very good one. What other strategies have you found effective for building a professional network within the fire service?
Certainly, yeah. To my earlier comment, just getting involved. Getting involved in whatever is available to get involved in, working on committees. And you're going to push a lot of this, even in my early part of my career, is getting out of your comfort zone. I'd say 100%, you're going to have to challenge your own comfort zone to move forward. And there are people who are generally kind of introverts, right? And they may not feel comfortable like engaging in conversations with others who they don't know. But my experience has been, you have to push through that a little bit, become maybe a little more of the extrovert that you can find within yourself, and then engage with people, similar interests, people with similar backgrounds, and you'll start to find the network of people that you're passionate about something, and there's a lot of other people that are going to be passionate about the same thing you are. And once those kind of relationships click, it just grows. It just grows more and more and more. And I don't want to use the proverbial wildfire, growing like a wildfire, but it really does. And my experience across the country, taking classes at the National Fire Academy has really expanded a lot of my network of people, coming to conferences, meeting new people, engaging with people, learning, being curious about people. I think that's another really be curious, not judgmental kind of approach, and very Ted Lasso. But I find that that's always been a winning method that I found, to just get to know people. And you'd be surprised at how small the fire service really is when you get to know people.
As far as it pertains to like associations or other organizations, how do you believe that those benefit networking and then your career development in the fire service?
I think that sometimes we become hyper-focused on what we're doing as an individual or our career path. But once you start breaking out, I know some very talented fire chiefs who serve on like a municipal water board or city government committees, things at a civic-minded approach that aren't necessarily super-centric to just the fire service.
Right.
And you become a more rounded person. You start engaging with conversations of other things. If you're very passionate about your city or your town you live in, and you get engaged in some, other things outside of just your department, you're going to find new ways of thought. You're going to find people who maybe think a little bit differently. And anytime you're kind of engaged with that, I think you learn different ways to think yourself, and you learn different avenues, and maybe even discover something you didn't know you really liked until you start having those conversations and that engagement, and then you find you really do like it.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners as it pertains to higher education or networking?
Push your comfort zone. I mentioned this earlier, and I would say always don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. I think the greatest growth for people is when that they've moved through a comfort zone, because if you're always in your comfort zone, you're not gonna grow as a person, as an individual. Don't be afraid to challenge your own thoughts, your own assumptions. Surround yourself with people that will challenge you as well. I found some of my greatest growth has come from people around me who pushed me out of my comfort zone and nudged me. But once I was out, once that little effort happened, I found a lot new ways of enjoyment in my career, enjoyment in friendships, enjoyment in relationships, enjoyment with others. So, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to push yourself into something you're maybe not familiar with, because in that lies the greatest growth I think that you're going to find as a person.
Yeah, excellent advice, especially for the younger generation of the fire service coming in.
Yes, 100%.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Fire Headlines.
Thank you.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and follow us on social media. We'll be back next week with another interview done at the FRI conference. Stay tuned to see who we spoke with.